you and a dinosaur.
And it is recording. Does it say live?
We are live.
Well, we are live.
Yeah, we have you, and there's various...
And we're going to wait 5 seconds as everyone comes in to...
People are coming on.
Brilliant. Okay, well, welcome everyone. This is fantastic, and welcome to a beautiful sunny day in Crystal Palace Park in South London. Now, first to introduce myself, my name's Dr. Aaron Hunter. I'm a paleontologist. I'm also today the Travel Curious Guide for you, and I'm also proudly a Blue Badge Guide as well for London. And it is my pleasure today to take you around Crystal Palace Park and to show you really what is a safari of the dinosaurs. Except later on we're going to discover they're not all dinosaurs. Now, one of the things that I'm going to explain to you first of all is what's happening here in England, because I know many of you are listening from around the world. At the moment we are having our lockdown here in England, and the UK government regulations are that we're allowed to come out today for exercise, and today we are having our exercise, and in fact we're allowed to be in exercise with members of our household. And so I'm here with wonderful Rob today, who I'm living in his house, and if you hear his voice in the background, he's the person that's going to be hopefully relaying lots of questions, because this is the time to ask lots of questions to an actual paleontologist, because it is my job and I do describe and work on fossils for a living, as well as being a very proud guide. So we're going to talk about today the Crystal Palace dinosaurs and why they are here. Well, this is Crystal Palace, and Crystal Palace is really the great exhibition that started in 1851. It was held in 1851 by Victoria and Albert. Victoria was Queen of the UK, of the Empire. She was Empress of India. And her husband, Albert, originally from Germany, from Saxe-Coburg, he had this beautiful idea of coming up with a great exhibition for Britain, showing Britain's technology, showing Britain's achievements in history and in science. And when that finished, there was a dilemma. What are we going to do about this huge greenhouse, which was maybe they say about 3 times the size of St Paul's Cathedral, a major cathedral here in London. And so the solution was to bring it down here to southeast London, my local park, and to put it here. And in fact, we're here now at the bottom of the hill, and on top of the hill, you can imagine, before 1936, when unfortunately it burnt down, that this particular palace was really the centre of this new development here. But part of that development was the creation of a series of sculptures, and these sculptures are highly important. They're made of mainly concrete because they represent what we know about dinosaurs then, back in the 1850s, 1852, 1851. And on this journey, I'll be taking you through the Crystal Palace dinosaurs. And if you just pan over, I think you can just see over here where they are. These are all the dinosaur models here. And I will be giving you a tour of the highlights of these dinosaurs. Now, the way they are arranged in a series of dates. First of all, I'm going to explain who created them. They were created by Benjamin Waterhouse Hawkins. He was a scientist, a fellow of the Geological Society of London. He was a sculptor. He created these. He was a scientist. And so what he did was he used the knowledge of the leading scientists of the day to create these particular models. He positioned them in terms of geological date, geological time. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about just 3 geological periods today. There are 4 represented here. One of them is the one at the beginning of the dinosaur era. We call it the Triassic. Let's say it's around about 200 million years ago. And what we did with that one is we painted the dinosaurs the colour of the rocks that they came from. So roughly sandstones, red, desert sandstones. And that's why we made them red. We then have the second lot of sculptures, and they were in lias rock. Rocks from the area around Dorset today, or the Yorkshire coast. And those lias rocks are clays, they're dark, and that's why we painted them a kind of a grey colour. And then that was the Jurassic period. You will know it more famously from Jurassic Park. And then finally, the last one is going to be the Cretaceous. And the Cretaceous on any geological map is going to be rather green, a sort of light pea green. And so that's why we decided to make these green. Now the last one you're going to ask me is the one that was the tertiary, the last after the dinosaurs became extinct in this extinction event 65 million years ago. We then have the age of the mammals, and that's the last island. So all of them are on several islands in this area. So we're going to start with the first island. Have we got any questions, Rob, so far, or are we okay? I think people, please feel free to answer any questions. What we're going to look at here is our first reptile, and our first reptile here is not a reptile at all. It's actually an amphibian. An amphibian, if you think what an amphibian is like a frog or a salamander. Now, what I should explain about these particular models is that the scientific knowledge in 1850s has moved, from 1850s to present day, has moved significantly forward. So these models are quite wrong, but I have great respect for them because what they did get right is quite a lot. So this particular model is called Labyrinthosaurus, a name that was coined by a scientist called Dr. Richard Owen. He is the man who is responsible for the present-day Natural History Museum, London. He was the first kind of keeper of natural sciences when it was part of another museum, the British Museum, which is also in central London. And so he looked at the existing bones, and this is what he came up with. It was this rather pig-like looking thing. He called it Labyrinthodon. Don means tooth. Labyrintha because its teeth looked like a maze. So therefore he called it Labyrinthodon. Unfortunately, his fantastic name hasn't survived. Today we call it Mastodontosaurus. Personally, I prefer Labyrinthosaurus. I think it's a great name. Now, also on the same island, you will also see something that looks rather like a turtle, a tortoise. And you can see them basking in the sunshine here. Now, they look like a tortoise, they look like a lizard, they are a reptile, but in fact, they're actually closer related to us. We are mammals. And they are mammals. In fact, we call them mammal-like reptiles. They also lived in that Triassic period, the first period when dinosaurs got going, really. Dinosaurs appeared during this time as well. Now, the thing about this one is that, again, this one looks more like a kind of large cow. It would have been probably towards a hippo with large teeth on. Where do they come from? They come from South Africa. And there would have been sort of these giant cows that would have walked along the undergrowth during the time of the Triassic. Another word about Labyrinthodon here. Labyrinthodon itself looks like a small pig. And in fact, the skull is quite accurate. But in fact, Labyrinthodon probably looked a lot more like a giant frog or a giant salamander. And some of them had bizarre looking heads like boomerangs. Now what we're going to do now is we're going to walk along, so walk with me, Rob, and this is where I'm going to ask a question that I hope everyone can hear, so I can think messages will come through. So I want everyone to tell me, what is a dinosaur? What is a dinosaur? What defines a dinosaur? Because the thing about Crystal Palace Park is these are not dinosaurs. They're marine reptiles, they are amphibians, they are in fact also, they are prehistoric animals, we can use that, but they're not dinosaurs. So if people want to sort of write in what they think a dinosaur is, what defines a dinosaur to them, please do. I don't know if anyone's come up with that, Rob. Have they come up with anything yet?
No, they're all stumped.
Really?
Yep.
What are they saying?
Probably jatting onto Google to see what they can find.
That's what
cheating.
No cheating, no Googling, all right? We don't want that. So, well, we're going to continue our story. And today we're going to talk about Mary Anning. Now, Mary Anning is the most famous early fossil hunter I can think of. You may have noticed by now that my name is A Hunter, a fossil hunter, but she was a real fossil hunter, and she was the pioneer of fossil collecting. You may have heard of she sells seashells on the seashore. That's her. That's what she came up with. And so what you have with her is that you have a woman, and of course you have to remember in the days when the only people really who could become professional scientists were men, Mary Anning became someone who became an important pioneer. And then hopefully later this year there will be a movie about her that will be featuring her life, because she lived in a town called Lyme Regis in Dorset, and it's there that she discovered what looked like unusual crocodile-like animals. They were weird. They had long snouts, they had big eyes, and they had long tails. And she started to explore these because she didn't need a formal education to be able to discover these animals. She just went out there with her hammer, much as we do today. Paleontologists still do that. We still go with our hammer in the field, or our hand lens here. We go out there and we go out and we look for these particular fossils. And she went out there and she found, the first one I'm going to talk about is Ichthyosaurus. Now, Ichthyosaurus is literally fish lizard. And if we look over here, this is Ichthyosaurus we can see here. Now, Ichthyosaurus, if I move along, because what we want to see is you want to look closely at the sort of the eye of Ichthyosaurus. And what you'll see there is a huge eye, a really huge eye and a huge snout. Now, what's incredible about this model is that today, what you see here, and if you go into the distance, I think also what you can see is where they've been restored. What you can see there is their colour. Look at their colour. Their colour is grey. That is designed to look just like the rocks of the sea cliffs around Lyme Regis today, where Mary Anning was collecting her fossils. Now, Ichthyosaurus, not a dinosaur. I don't know if anyone's coming with any ideas. A dinosaur is mainly a land animal. Okay, specifically all dinosaurs that we're going to talk about today are land animals, but these ones are a separate group of reptiles and they are entirely marine. They're in the sea. So what you see here is you see something, again, basking in the sunshine. It looks as if rather like a kind of a seal. It's come up to breathe air. They are, after all, air breathers, and that's important in a moment. I'll mention that. And what they're doing is they're coming up onto land and they're sort of basking. But in fact, this particular fossil was significant because it was first discovered. We started to realise that many of these organisms were extinct. Nothing today matches anything like this. In fact, marine reptiles don't exist today. The only thing that's nearest to that would be perhaps a sea turtle that comes up onto land to lay its eggs, like a leatherhead turtle in Southeast Asia. So what you see here is something that's truly unique, and that's the reason why the Crystal Palace dinosaurs in the 1850s was such a huge challenge, because all these scientists had were a series of bones, a series of fossil remains, and they literally could not know what they looked like. They had to look at other animals to try and look like what they thought they might look like. And so when they looked at Ichthyosaurus, they looked at it and they thought, that looks really similar to like a crocodile. So that's what we've got. We have a seal-like crocodile. Big flippers. It has a long tail coming out there. And it has a long snout with these big fish-eating teeth and these huge eyes going around. So, and in fact, we can also see it in front here is some of the birds as well. We're going to talk in a moment how birds are related to all of this, because we have our living dinosaur relatives all around us here as well. So, but what changed with Ichthyosaurus was another deposit of rocks. We now go to southwest Germany, a place called Holzmarden, and it was there that we found a beautiful skeleton, which actually showed that in reality, Ichthyosaurus actually looked more like a dolphin, but different from a dolphin. If you ever watch on the BBC or something like that, you watch these wildlife documentaries, you'll see a dolphin swimming like this. Okay, they swim like this, Ichthyosaurs. They're like sharks. So if you look at the tail over here, you'll see the tail is not the same. The tail is very long and extended. When we found a specimen that preserved the outside, the outline of the actual top fin they had, they would have had a top fin, and then the back, which looked very shark-like, we realised they looked like that. Now, what makes Ichthyosaurus exceptional is that we also have found in Holzmarden examples of where we have a baby being born out of an ichthyosaur mother and dying in childbirth as well. I don't know if anyone's commenting about that because it's a really sad story coming out. Are we having comments coming through?
No, we've got lots of people joined, waving.
Lots of waving. People, I've lots of waves, but come on, try and ask some questions. Try to ask some fossil questions here. What we have here with Ichthyosaurus was we have an animal that gives birth to live young. Now, most marine reptiles, most reptiles we think of today, even turtles, will have to go back to the land, lay eggs, and then go back into the sea again. Ichthyosaurs couldn't do that. We think that they would have spent their entire life at sea. And so for that reason, they had to, like modern dolphins, give birth to live young. So this is an exceptional discovery we found here. Other discoveries, we have discovered ichthyosaurs themselves, which have blubber. So rather like modern whales, they evolved blubber. And bearing in mind, they have no modern relation to dolphins as well. So this is a kind of thing we call evolutionary convergence, convergent evolution. Things appearing at the same time in different animals or at different times, but it's just parallel evolution. And then we also have here as well, is we also have different shading. So they might be grey today. We probably think they might well have actually been grey or maybe a bit spotty like a dolphin. Now, if you look over to one side here, to what is your left, you will see a rather interesting looking animal with flippers and with a long neck. And in fact, if you pan over a bit, Rob, look at that mallard over there, and behind the mallard you will see it there as well. You will see a long twisty neck. Now, this is a plesiosaur. Okay, now we had two types of marine reptiles at this age, Plesiosaur and Plesiosaur. Plesiosaur, short neck, Plesiosaur, long neck. Okay, but look at that neck. Isn't that strange? Well, when we first discovered this particular reptile in the fossil record, same person, Mary Anning, down in Lyme Regis, okay, lived 1850s, 1840s. When she was finding this, we simply believed that that neck was not possible. It was not possible to have a neck that was that weird. Now, we've since discovered dinosaurs that have enormous necks, up to 3 meters long, so we're okay now, and maybe longer than that. But the idea at the time is we just thought that neck wasn't possible. So the scientists of the day decided that they would reconstruct it with a twisty neck, like a snake, because they believed there were muscles inside the neck, because muscles weren't preserved, in order to have it preserved like that. So although today this would probably look like Plesiosaur, a long-necked animal, in fact, we have ended up making it look like a snake. Now we're going to move along here, because what we're going to do is we're going to show you more details here of our, what we call our Lias Jurassic Island. And now you can look straight ahead. And what you can see there, by the way, is you can see some birds sitting there. Today we've got some ducks there in between. That's a nice little link here, because now we're going to move on to what you've been waiting for, I hope, which is the real dinosaurs and what a dinosaur really is. Now, the thing about dinosaurs is that dinosaurs themselves today, or even perhaps back in the 1980s, we regarded dinosaurs and birds as being relatives from each other. We did discover a feathered lizard-like animal called Archaeopteryx in Bavaria in southeast Germany. And so from that animal alone, that animal is middle Jurassic period, we realised that dinosaurs and birds were closely related. But science has really moved on, and some amazing discoveries, particularly in the area around Liaoning in the northeast part of China, we found a series of dinosaurs that had feathers. And that transformed our understanding of dinosaurs, because then we realised now that dinosaurs themselves were literally, really on the way to being birds. In fact, to a certain extent, they are birds. I'll just check my microphone's okay there, it's good. They are in fact birds. Dinosaurs and birds are almost the same animal. And it's very confusing today, because now we realise that they really gradually evolved into each other. So what's interesting to point out is that we are here surrounded by ancestors of the very animals, the ducks, that are here on this particular lake. Now what we're going to do now is we're going to move forward to our position to see the actual dinosaurs themselves. Let's move along. And it's here that I ask you a question. Now you must know this one, okay? Please name now the most famous dinosaurs that you can name. Okay, I want to see people, if you want to think of a dinosaur, okay, that one that was running after a jeep in Jurassic Park, I want that one written down. Okay, I want you now to name the most famous dinosaurs that you know. Okay, anyone's coming in? Come on, everyone. That's what we want to see. We want to see them.
They've all joined in.
Are they all joined in now?
Yeah, but they've all probably gone off to the garden, I think. Come back.
Oh, they've gone?
So, yeah, I think that's 25, is it? The number in the grey there? 25 people, is that the number who've joined? 24?
Yeah, I've got it.
Oh, yeah. So there's...
Well, come on, we want people to talk about dinosaurs here because we want to talk about what... So just write in the name of a dinosaur that you want to name in there.
That's a big beast.
Yeah, so this is a big beast here. Well, okay, I'm going to wait for you because there's going to be a bit of a lag here for people to come in with some suggestions here. So, Rob, famous dinosaur?
T-Rex.
T-Rex, come on, that's a good one there. T-Rex.
Diplodocus.
Diplodocus or Diplodocus. I haven't quite worked out which one is correct.
No.
Diplodocus, Dippy, the one that went on a tour around Britain.
Stegosaurus. On the back.
That's one of the plates on the back, yes, and we're going to mention Stegosaurus in a moment. Well, yeah, plate lizard. That's where it comes from. Yeah, I know it's a bad joke, Rob. Yeah, maybe not. Plate lizard. That's what it comes. No, not far off. Yeah, it does serve dinner. Yeah, it's plate lizard. And then another famous one, perhaps, would be Velociraptor, which actually is Mongolian. And then we have one more, Triceratops.
Missing something in the comments. Do I scroll up?
I'm just going to
wait for the answers. Right. Okay, we've got some down here.
Oh, we've got some.
Your dinosaur from
prehistoric animal that gave birth through eggs. Yeah, I'd agree with that one.
There you go.
That's a good one. We've got some answers.
Yeah, we've got the answers. We haven't been scrolling up. Now, here we go.
There we go. I haven't been scrolling up here, Rob. Come on, there we go.
No. I was watching the ducks.
Yeah, Diplodocus. Thanks a lot. Iguanodon. Thanks a lot, everyone. Yeah, sorry if a technical error, but I'm glad everyone's doing that. So yeah, we've got things. So yeah, thanks everyone for saying that. So what we got? Let's go through it, Rob. We've got loads of time here. What else have we got? Let's have a look at some of these. Triceratops. Yeah, we've got all. They're the classic ones. Pterodactyl. Sorry, Bronchiosaurus. I use that name. That's not a dinosaur. We've got Brachiosaurus. That's what you mean. The one in Berlin, the Natural History Museum in Berlin. That one there. Now, the reason why Rob gets back onto me here, we talk about dinosaurs here, is because they are the most famous iconic dinosaurs, and they're all mainly American. Okay, they're from the United States or Canada. Don't miss out Canada here, okay? Because Canada does have a fantastic deposit of dinosaurs, okay? So, Stegosaurus, Colorado. Tyrannosaurus rex, Montana, for example. Triceratops, you want to go up to Montana to see that one. That's where they're discovered. But what you may not know is the first dinosaurs to be discovered come from England. And the 3 dinosaurs that were named, so the people we're going to talk about now are going to be the early dinosaur scientists. So our first scientist to mention now is William Buckland. Okay, William Buckland. And William Buckland was the man who came up and described this one. Megalosaurus, big lizard. Good name. And here is Megalosaurus. Now, Megalosaurus looks rather like a big rhino. And there's a reason why we mention that at the moment. Now, this was the one that was discovered around Oxfordshire. And if you are near Oxford, and when your museum reopens, the University Museum there, get in there and have a look at the bones there. Because this is one of the first dinosaurs to be discovered. In fact, when it was discovered, we didn't even have the word dinosaur yet. We didn't even coin the word dinosaur. The word dinosaur was kind of created by Dr. Richard Owen, the man I mentioned earlier. And Dr. Richard Owen decided dinosaur was a new name that was needed for these first things to be discovered in England. So, although I mentioned earlier it was Cretaceous, I need to be exact here. This one is actually a real Jurassic beast. and it's from the Jurassic of England. But we also mentioned Stegosaurus. So we're going to move forward now, because Helio Soros, which is the next dinosaur, so we're going to move this way. Helio Soros is this dinosaur here, facing away from us. Why do you think, by the way, everyone, it's facing away from us? Is it trying to hide something? Well, actually, we do think it is, because Helio Soros, when we first reconstructed this dinosaur, we didn't have very much of the skull.
Quick interruption.
Yes.
What about the Loch Ness Monster?
Oh, Loch Ness Monster. Okay, the Loch Ness Monster, which of course, for the sake of Scottish tourism, does exist. Now, the Loch Ness Monster, people, when they've reconstructed it, believes it looks like a Plesiosaur. But we don't really know, do we? Because who's seen it? So, but it's not a dinosaur, it's a marine reptile, if it exists. So, Heliosaurus is what we call an ornithischian dinosaur, which is a scientific word for the family that includes Stegosaurus. So, but this is an Ankylosaur, which is that dinosaur with large plates on it. It looks like a tank with sort of pointed processes at the end of its tail, which weren't found by then. So we didn't have much of the skull on Heliosaurus, but we did have a lot of the processes on the back. And so when Benjamin did the models, he made sure they were on there. Now, I hope you've enjoyed this dinosaur discovery today. But in fact, the last highlight is my favourite one of all. And it is, look over here, this is my favourite, Iguanodon. It's my favourite story because it has a great story behind it. Iguanodon, iguana tooth, discovered in area around Surrey and Sussex. There is still a huge slab of this, by the way, in Natural History Museum, London. So if you have any time, go in the museum. It's called the Maidstone slab. It's from Kent. And what you will see here is you will see Iguanodon clutching a cycad-like plant, which is a reconstruction of the plants that would have existed at the time the dinosaurs would have done. We have to remember that much of the plants around here, the flowering plants, didn't evolve until much, much later. Now let's look closely at Iguanodon, and what you will see on Iguanodon is you'll see something on top of the nose, and that is a horn, and that is significant because Iguanodon, when it was first discovered, in fact, I explained the story. Gideon Mantell, the surgeon, he was a surgeon, he was an amateur paleontologist, many of them were in those days. He went out to collect bones. And one of the things he also did was to go and see patients. He went to go and see a patient, and he left Mary Ann Mantell, his wife, in the carriage, bored. So what did Mary Ann do? Well, she went out and went to look for some fossils, because she was, after all, just as much interested in fossils as he was. What did Mary Ann find? She found a tooth amongst that. And so that tooth was the first iguana tooth because it looked like an iguana. But they also found a kind of a horn. And they didn't know where to put that horn.
Just got an interesting one, a Hornisaurus?
No, and we haven't come up with that one yet.
All right.
But it's a good name. We might use that one later. And so they decided what to do with this horn. So they put the horn on the head. And they did that because another scientist that lived at the time, Georges Cuvier in Paris, one of the fathers of paleontology, a Frenchman, he was very much into elephants and rhinos, and he suggested to Gideon Mantell, they were writing letters to each other, that this animal would have looked rather like a rhino.
Or someone saying their mother-in-law, but we'll protect the name.
We'll protect the name of that one, yes. And so this dinosaur, we put the sort of the horn on the nose, but then when we discovered other dinosaurs in America, and in particular a whole series of complete iguanodons in a coal mine in Belgium, Dinosaur, we realised that the actual horn went on the thumb. It was a little thumb spike they would have looked on. Now, to finish our story off, this particular dinosaur is also famous because in 1853, when those scientists celebrated their discoveries, they decided to have a party inside one of them. So can you imagine all the scientists of their day having a party inside, yes, they're dinosaurs, having dinosaurs inside, having a party, a table inside one of these dinosaurs and having a sort of 3-course meal, or even a 4-course meal, it may have had cheese, inside this particular dinosaur and celebrating their achievements. And I think these are amazing. And in fact, I should point out, I should urge people, check the web for these, check Friends of Crystal Palace Dinosaurs, but also these are on the Heritage at Risk list, and so we should look after those.
We have some local knowledge coming in. It says Mantell had a terrible accident on Clapham Common, and this twisted spine.
Really? Okay, well thanks for that. Because I think we have to wind up now, I think.
In Owen's Museum.
Oh really?
Yes.
Okay, well I'll look that up. See, that's the thing about that. I'm always learning new stuff.
There you go.
So anyway, I'm now going to wind this wonderful tour. I've had a fantastic time showing you around the dinosaurs today, and I hope I've brought some interest to you in terms of how to sort of discover more about our dinosaurs. Now, all I'm going to say is today is make sure you check out the Travel Curious website, where you can leave perhaps some sort of donation that will be deducted perhaps from a future Travel Curious tour. Make sure that you like this post, make sure that you check back at this post, and I want to thank you for joining me today and giving really on what is really my daily walk around my favourite happy dinosaurs.
Very quick, what do you call a dinosaur with no eyes?
I don't know.
Probably right.
Do you think you saw us?
I don't know.
Probably. It's that most classic dinosaur joke.